Morning friends, I am Captain Dr. D.K. Ramawat, non-invasive cardiologist working at Ramawat Heart and General Medicine Hospital, Barmer, Rajasthan, India since 20 years. In today's CME, we are taking international chapter, the percutaneous balloon mitral valvuloplasty, a very interesting topic, and it is simplified, very much simplified by me, and everyone can understand very easily. So we are going now for percutaneous balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Let us go ahead. So we are taking international cardiology. So we are dealing with, in today's CME, valvular interventions, the balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Regarding introduction, though the prevalence of rheumatic fever is declining, rheumatic mitral stenosis continues to be an important health issue, particularly in developing countries. Balloon mitral valvuloplasty is an established treatment modality in selected patients with gratifying, satisfying short and long-term outcomes. This chapter deals with all the aspects of the procedure along with technical details and tips and tricks. Now the anatomical considerations. The mitral wall apparatus is a complex structure comprising of annulus fibrosus, mitral leaflets, cauda tendineae, papillary muscles, and posterior wall of left ventricle. The normal mitral wall area is 4 to 6 centimeters square. Mitral stenosis occurs when stenosis of the wall results from leaflet thickening, commissural fusion, and caudal shortening or fusion, ultimately resulting in increased pulmonary capillary wedge pressure, that is, an elevated pulmonary vascular resistance and right ventricular dysfunction. As the severity of mitral stenosis increases, cardiac output becomes subnormal at rest and fails to increase during exercise. When the mitral wall area is reduced to 1.5 centimeters square or less, symptoms may become severe and complications may develop. You can see the figure in 2D and 3D. You are seeing from the posterior aspect of the heart. So this is the anterior cusp and this is the posterior cusp. Anterior leaflet and posterior leaflet in 3D. It is looking like fish mouth, the fish mouth. Now we have to understand the severity of mitral stenosis by 2D code. Normal mitral wall area is 4 to 6 centimeters square per meter square body surface area. Now regarding severity, if it is mild, it is the orifice is 1.6 to 2 square centimeter. If it is moderate, orifice is 1 to 1.5 square centimeter. If it is severe stenosis, then it is less than 1 square centimeter. Regarding historical aspect, the treatment of mitral stenosis has undergone a revolutionary change since the development of balloon mitral valvuloplasty. A Japanese cardiac surgeon, Kanji Aino, performed the first balloon mitral valvuloplasty in 1982 using a balloon with differential compliance. Though various techniques were described and practiced in the past like double balloon technique, multi-track technique, and metallic commissurotomy. They are all almost abandoned due to the risk and complications involved when compared to iono balloon technique. Iono single balloon technique has evolved to be the most popular method for performing balloon mitral valvuloplasty in majority parts of the world. The mechanism of balloon mitral valvuloplasty is splitting of huge commissure. Now the fourth point, indications and recommendations for percutaneous balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Before we know the indications, we have to undergo stages of mitral stenosis, which are A, B, C and D as follows. Now there are 4 stages of mitral stenosis: A, B, C and D. In stage number A, there it is at risk of mitral stenosis. Valve anatomy, mild valve doming during diastole. Valve hemodynamic, normal transmittal flow velocity. Hemodynamic consequences, none. Symptoms, none. Now the stage B, progressive mitral stenosis. Valve anatomy, pneumatic valve changes with commissural fusion and diastolic doming of mitral valve leaflets. And by planimetry, mitral valve area will be more than 1.5 centimeter square, means mild mitral stenosis. Then valve hemodynamics, there will be increased transmittal flow velocity and mitral valve area will be more than 1.5 centimeter square, means mild mitral stenosis. Then diastolic pressure half time is less than 150 milliseconds, and this is obtained by 0.29 into deceleration time formula. Then the hemodynamic consequences. Here it will in stage B, mild to moderate left atrial enlargement and normal pulmonary pressure at rest, and symptoms are none. Then stage C of mitral stenosis, there is asymptomatic, because symptomatic you will find in D. Here it is asymptomatic severe mitral stenosis. Regarding valve anatomy, pneumatic valve changes with commissural fusion and diastolic doming of mitral valve leaflet C. And by planimetry, mitral valve area is less than 1.5 centimeter square, means severe mitral stenosis, or it can be less than 1 centimeter square, that is with very severe mitral stenosis. Then regarding valve hemodynamic, mitral valve area is less than 1.5 centimeter square, means severe mitral stenosis, or it can be less than 1 centimeter square, means very severe mitral stenosis. Then diastolic pressure half time will be more than 150 milliseconds. And regarding hemodynamic concentration in stage C, severe LA enlargement and elevated pulmonary artery systolic pressure, means more than 30 millimeter of the mercury, and symptoms will be none. You see symptoms in first stage 1 none, stage B none, and stage C none. Then we come to stage D. Here are symptomatic severe mitral stenosis. Regarding valve anatomy, pneumatic valve changes with commissural fusion and diastolic doming of mitral valve leaflet C, and planimetered mitral valve area is less than 1.5 centimeter square, means very severe mitral stenosis. Now regarding valve hemodynamics, mitral valve area is less than 1.5 centimeter square, means severe mitral stenosis, or it can be less than 1 centimeter square, means very severe mitral stenosis. And diastolic pressure half time will be more than 150 meter per second, and diastolic pressure half time will be more than 120 meter second with very severe mitral stenosis. Regarding hemodynamic consequences, severe left atrial enlargement and elevated pulmonary artery systolic pressure more than 30 millimeter of the mercury. Here symptoms are prominent, like decreased exercise tolerance number 1 and abdominal dyspnea number 2. So now I am going to take you at the indications for balloon mitral valvuloplasty, which have been formulated by American College of Cardiology and American Heart Association. Class 1 recommendations are as follows. Number 1, symptomatic patients with severe mitral stenosis, means mitral valve area less than 1.5 centimeter square, means this is stage D of mitral stenosis, and favorable valve morphology in the absence of left atrial thrombus or moderate to severe mitral regurgitation. This is level of evidence A. Number 2, asymptomatic patients with moderate or severe mitral stenosis and valve morphology that is favorable for balloon mitral valvuloplasty, who have pulmonary hypertension, means systolic pressure greater than 50 millimeter of the mercury at rest and greater than 60 with exercise, in the absence of left atrial thrombus or moderate to severe mitral regurgitation. This is level of evidence C. Now we are supposed to know semi-quantitation of mitral regurgitation by color probe mapping. Now if you see jet length less than 1.5 centimeter, this is mild MR. If you see jet length 1.5 to 3 centimeter, this is moderate MR. If you see more than 3 centimeter jet length, this is severe MR. If you see jet area in left atrium, if it is less than 20%, it is mild MR. If you see jet area in left atrium 20 to 40%, this is moderate MR. If you see jet area in left atrium more than 40%, this is severe MR. If this, now the maximum jet area occupied by the LA, if it is less than 4 centimeter square, this is mild MR. If it occupies 8 centimeter square, this is moderate MR. If it occupies more than 8 centimeter square, this is severe MR. Then class 2nd A recommendations are as follows. Asymptomatic patients with very severe mitral stenosis, means valve area less than 1 centimeter square, means stage C of mitral stenosis and favorable valve morphology in absence of left atrial thrombus, in absence of left atrial thrombus or moderate to severe MR, means level of evidence C. Then class 2nd B recommendations are as follows. Number 1, asymptomatic patient with severe mitral stenosis, means valve area 1.5 centimeter square, means stage C of mitral stenosis and valve morphology favorable for balloon mitral valvuloplasty in the absence of left atrial thrombus or moderate to severe MR, who have new onset of atrial fibrillation, level of evidence C. Symptomatic patients with mitral valve area greater than 1.5 centimeter square, if there is evidence of hemodynamically significant mitral stenosis based on pulmonary artery wedge pressure greater than 25 millimeter of mercury and mean mitral valve gradient greater than 15 millimeter of the mercury during exercise. This is level of evidence C. Then the third indication, symptomatic patients, New York Heart Association class 3rd or to 4th with severe mitral stenosis, mitral valve area 1.5 centimeter square, means stage D of mitral stenosis, who have a suboptimal, means less than highest standard valve anatomy and who are not candidate for surgery or at high risk for surgery, we recommend, means this is level of evidence C. Then the contraindications of percutaneous balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Number 1, mitral valve area greater than 1.5 centimeter square, means mild mitral stenosis. Then second, the left atrial thrombus present. So we don't do this valvuloplasty. Then more than mild MR, means moderate to severe MR, we don't do valvuloplasty. Then severe or bicommissural calcification, we don't do valvuloplasty. Then absence of commissural fusion, we don't do valvuloplasty. Then severe concomitant aortic valve dysfunction or severe tricuspid stenosis or regurgitation, we don't do valvuloplasty. Then lastly, concomitant coronary artery disease requiring bypass surgery, we don't do valvuloplasty. Then what are the periprocedural care? First we will do the periprocedural planning. Regarding planning, physical examination is an important initial step in assessing the pliability, flexibility of the valve. Accentuation of first heart sound S1 occurs when the mitral valve leaflets are pliable, means flexible. Marked calcification of the valve may make S1 softer. The opening snap of mitral valve is most readily audible at the apex. If present, then not. If present, it may indicate that the mitral valve has at least some mobility. Now, the role of echocardiography in balloon mitral valvuloplasty, valve assessment and case selection done. The primary objective of echocardiographic assessment is to find the suitable valve for balloon mitral valvuloplasty and identify high-risk echocardiographic features which may result in complications. The echocardiographic scoring system developed by Wilkins is useful for estimating likely outcomes of balloon mitral valvuloplasty. In this system, points are given for leaflet mobility, valve thickening, subvalvular thickening, and valvular calcification. The final score is determined by adding the points for each of the components, and maximum point can be 16 points. A score of 8 or lower usually signifies excellent immediate and long-term outcome of balloon mitral valvuloplasty, whereas scores greater than 8 are associated with less impressive outcome, including the risk of development of mitral regurgitation. Calcification of both commissure is considered as absolute contraindication for balloon mitral valvuloplasty, as it poses increased risk of leaflet tear. Increased risk of leaflet tear. The presence of predominant subvalvular fibrosis and calcification results in suboptimal results from balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Echocardiography scoring system of Wilkins to predict outcome of mitral balloon valvuloplasty. They are grade 1, 2, 3, 4. In grade 1, the mobility, highly mobile valve with only leaflet elasticity and thickening, leaflets near normal in thickness, that is 4 to 5 millimeter. Regarding calcification, a single area of increased echo brightness seen. Then subvalvular thickening, minimal thickening just below the mitral leaflet seen. In grade 2, leaflets mid and base portions have normal mobility and mid leaflets normal. Considerable thickening of margins seen, that is 5 to 8 millimeter, and scattered areas of brightness confined to leaflet margins. Then thickening of caudal structure extending to 1/3 of the caudal length seen. Then stage 3, valve continues to move forward in diastole, mainly from the base, and thickening extending through the entire leaflet, means 5 to 8 millimeter. Brightness extending into the mid portions of the leaflet. Then thickening extended to distal third of the cord. Lastly, the grade 4 of mitral stenosis. Here, no or minimal forward movement of the leaflet in diastole. Considerable thickening of all leaflet tissue seen, means more than 8 to 10 millimeter. Then extensive brightness throughout much of the leaflet tissue seen, and extensive thickening and shortening of all caudal structures extending down to the papillary muscles seen. So here you can see the figure continuity of the mitral apparatus and the left ventricular myocardium. This is, you can see from posterior portion. This is posteriorly you are seeing, not the anteriorly. That is why this is posterior leaflet, that is anterior leaflet. These are the posterior, this is annulus, and that is anterior annulus. And these are the chorda tendineae, and this is lateral papillary muscle with the preval. This is medial papillary muscle near the ventricular septum. Now patient's preparation done. Now what are the preparation for the patient? Usually balloon mitral valve is done on the patient under local anesthesia and conscious sedation. Patient remains in the supine position during the procedure. Never forget, patient under local anesthesia and conscious sedation remains in the supine position during the procedure. Technique used is number 1 approach. Currently, the antegrade approach with transseptal catheterization is more popular. It is usually performed through the femoral vein or rarely through the jugular vein. Now the choice of technique, though various techniques were described and practiced in the past, like double balloon technique, multi-track technique, metallic commissurotomy, they all are almost abandoned. They all are almost abandoned due to risk and complications involved when compared to ionoballoon technique. Very important nowadays, ionoballoon technique. Now the ionoballoon technique, first described in 1984, is the most commonly employed technique today. Since then, wide experience of the technique has been acquired by a number of groups working worldwide. In developing countries, iono prototype Acura balloon is routinely used with comparable success rate. Now, the vascular access for transseptal access carried out. We have to do transseptal access by vascular access. The 7th French sheath is inserted in the right femoral vein for transseptal access. A 5 French sheath is placed in the right or left femoral artery for left heart catheterization. Right heart catheterization is performed under bolus administration of 1000 unit heparin. After successful transseptal puncture, additional 2000 units of heparin is given. 2 pressure transducers, means pressure sensors, are recording for obtaining simultaneous left atrial and left ventricular pressures used. A pictal catheter is placed in the aortic root, either in the left coronary sinus or in the non-coronary sinus, and aortic pressure is obtained. Remember, maximum you can give here 5000 of the heparin. Then, now we will proceed to transseptal puncture technique. What is that technique? you just say transseptal catheterization is a crucial important component of balloon mitral valve valvuloplasty. The danger of transseptal approach is the possibility of an inadvertent unintentional error, puncture by the needle and catheter of an adjacent structure. What are those adjacent structures? Number 1, coronary sinus. Number 2, the posterior wall of the right atrium. Number 3, the aortic root. To minimize complications, operator must have a detailed knowledge of regional anatomy of atrial septum. The steps of septal puncture are listed in table as follows in next slide. In next slide, I will show you the steps of septal puncture. Now, what are the equipments for septal puncture? Number 1, Mullins seal. Number 2, broken burrow needle. So, we have come to steps of septal puncture. Step 1, Mullins seal with broken burrow needle positioned in superior vena cava and pictal catheter positioned in aorta. Step 2, Mullins seal with broken burrow needle withdrawn into the right atrium. Step 3, broken burrow needle rotated to 4 to 5 o'clock position and optimum position confirmed anteroposteriorly in right anterior oblique view and left anterior oblique view. Step 4, left atrial entry done. Left atrial entry done by puncture around fossa ovalis site with tip of the broken burrow needle. And lastly, step 5, it is nothing but to know and confirm left atrial entry. How to confirm left atrial entry? Number 1, withdrawal of oxygenated blood. Number 2, pressure recording showing the left atrial pressure testing. And number 3, by contrast injection into left atrial chamber. Now, landmark. We have to give landmarks for septal puncture, and they are given in the figure of the next slide. I will show you next slide and the landmark. Now the transseptal puncture is usually done under fluoroscopic guidance. Never forget, remember it. Transseptal puncture is usually done under fluoroscopic guidance. The location of fossa ovalis can be identified by using fluoroscopic landmark. The pictal marks the location of aortic wall. The pictal marks the location of aortic wall. In AP view, fossa ovalis lies inferior and medial to aortic wall. To select optimal transseptal puncture site, 2 imaginary lines are drawn. Number 1, the vertical midline, middle of the septum. The vertical midline, it is middle of the septum seen fluoroscopically. Then the horizontal M line, it is middle of the mitral valve seen fluoroscopically. I will show you in the next slide both these. Then the point of intersection of vertical midline and horizontal midline indicates the site of septal puncture. I again repeat, point of intersection of vertical midline and horizontal midline indicate what? The site of puncture. In most situations, the septal puncture is done in left anterior oblique view at 40 degree or left lateral view as shown in figure 2C in next slide. I will show you in next slide. In these views, ideal septal puncture site corresponds to the midpoint between the pictal catheter placed in aortic sinus and the vertebral spine. The position should be confirmed in right anterior oblique view at 30 degree view. So, This is fluoroscopic landmark for septal puncture. This is your pigtail in aorta. Pigtail catheter in aorta, and this is your Mullin sheath and broken baronial. Mullin sheath and broken baronial, and you can see this is midline vertically middle of the septum. Fluoroscopically can be seen. This is horizontal M line middle of the mitral wall seen by fluoroscopically. Then intersection point will be half to one vertebral body, will be half to one vertebral body below the horizontal M line. I again repeat, intersection point will be half to one vertebral body below the horizontal line, and here this is the pigtail, this is the pigtail, this is the vertebral spine. So ideal midpoint corresponds to midpoint of pigtail catheter and pigtail catheter in aorta, pigtail catheter in aorta and spine. This is the midpoint. Here you have to puncture. After puncture, after intratracheal septal puncture, you have to dilate the point. After intratracheal septal puncture site, you have to do dilation. Atrial septal puncture, a coiled tip guide wire is placed into the left atrium. After septal puncture, a coiled tip guide wire is placed into the left atrium. Next, the septal dilator, 14F polyethylene tube with a thinner tip, 70 cm in length, is advanced over the coiled tip wire to facilitate the entry of iron of balloon catheter. Now, the heparin is usually 100 mg unit per kg, 100 unit per kg or per kg body weight. Is administered for anticoagulation once the catheter is safely placed in the left atrium. Forget not, heparin usually 100 units per kg is administered for anticoagulation once the catheter is safely placed in the left atrium, and maximum you will give 5,000 units of the heparin. 5,000 units of the heparin. It is administered for anticoagulation once the catheter is safely placed in the left atrium. Monitoring of anticoagulation time is done during the procedure to maintain appropriate level of anticoagulation. Maintain FPTT in therapeutic range of 1.5 to 2.5 times of control, that is 60 to 80 seconds. Now, regarding selection of balloon catheter, the triple lumen iron balloon catheter and the double lumen active balloon catheter are the most commonly used balloon catheters during balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Both the balloons are effective in providing relief from hemodynamically significant mitral stenosis in terms of gain in wall area and reduction in transmitral gradient. The patient's weight, height and body surface area determines the balloon diameter size. The patient's weight, height and body surface area determines the balloon diameter size. Size of the balloon is calculated by Hugg's formula. If patient's height is 158 centimeter, then reference diameter will be 160 over 10 plus 10 means 26 millimeter. Very simple. A balloon catheter with a normal reference size used in case of pliable, flexible, non-calcified valve with mitral regurgitation of less than 1 centimeter square of the mitral wall means mild MR. A balloon catheter 2 sizes smaller than reference size is selected in patients with high risk features of developing severe MR. And what are the sign symptoms of the severe MR? Number 1, valvular calcification. Second, severe valvular stenosis. Number third, non-pliable valves. Then after each dilatation, echocardiography should be reviewed. After each dilatation, echocardiography should be reviewed for what? New appearance of significant MR, worsening of pre-existing MR, commissural split before considering next inflation, commissural split before considering next inflation. Initial inflation is done at 2 millimeter less than the reference diameter and size is upgraded. After carefully assessing hemodynamics and MR. The balloon catheter upsizing should be guarded and gated to achieve optimal results. Now we have come to the crossing the mitral wall. Crossing the mitral wall after dilatation of interatrial septum. So, after dilatation of the interatrial septum puncture site, balloon catheter is advanced over the coiled tip wire. Balloon catheter is advanced over the coiled tip wire toward the mitral wall orifice. How will you find that it is mitral wall? We will find when once the balloon is close to the mitral wall, bobbing movement or wood packing sign of balloon may be observed. Once the balloon is close to wall, bobbing movement or wood packing sign of balloon may be observed. Several techniques are described for entering mitral wall, like the vertical method, the direct method, the sliding method, posterior loop method, and modified over the wire technique. After the balloon catheter has been inserted into the left ventricle, the distal portion of balloon is inflated with contrast media. Dilution will be 1:1 using a specially graduated syringe. The catheter is thereafter pulled until resistance is felt as the balloon catheter aligns. Resistance is felt. Why? Because the balloon catheter aligns across the mitral wall and then the balloon is fully expanded till the proximal part of the balloon. The balloon is fully expanded till the proximal part of the balloon. Figure in next slide illustrates a step-by-step demonstration of balloon mitral valvuloplasty procedure that we will see in next slide. The operator should obtain the left atrial pressure and the mitral gradient after each dilation. In case there is no decrease in the transmitral pressure gradient, remember, in case there is no decrease in the transmitral pressure gradient, the balloon size is increased in 1 millimeter increment till the pressure gradient decreases, or substantial worsening of mitral regurgitation occurs, As an additional measure, two-dimensional echocardiographic observations are performed after each dilatation. Now the planimetry method of valve orifice with two-dimensional echocardiography should be adopted rather than the pressure half-time method on continuous Doppler waveform to assess mitral valve orifice area after each dilatation, because pressure half-time derived orifice area might be inaccurate in this acute setting. So, here are the salient steps of balloon mitral valvuloplasty. You can see the pigtail catheter in the aorta. And septal puncture using broken burrow needle. Septal puncture using broken burrow needle. Then coiled wire in left atrial septal puncture. In coiled wire in left atrial after septal puncture. This is coiled wire in left atrium after septal puncture. Then septal dilatation with 14F dilator. Septal dilatation with 14F dilator. Then Acura balloon over the coiled guide wire causing the mitral valve. Acura balloon over the coiled guide wire causing the mitral valve. And here you can find fully inflated iron balloon across mitral valve. Fully inflated iron balloon across mitral valve. Now, what are the problems in puncturing interatrial septum? Number one, marked left atrial enlargement more than 60 millimeter and abnormal atrial bulge. You must know the normal atrial size is 1 millimeter to 37 millimeter. But if it is more than 60 millimeter, it is problem. Then atrial septal aneurysm is a problem. Then double atrial membrane is a problem. Then thick interatrial septum. Normal interatrial septum is 4.4 millimeter to 25 millimeter in size. But if it is more than this, then it is a problem for punching interatrial septum. Then the kyphoscoliosis. Kyphoscoliosis in a patient is problem in punching interatrial septum. Now the great important point, the definition of successful balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Number one, more than 50% increase in the mitral valve area means successful. Increase in mitral valve area to more than 1.5 centimeter square means equal to mild to moderate mitral stenosis means successful balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Then third, significant fall in LF pressure from 25 millimeter to near 4 to 12 millimeter. It is a successful balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Then mild regurgitation, mitral regurgitation no more than grade second. Mitral regurgitation no more than grade second means stage B of mitral regurgitation, that is central jet in atrium is 20% to 40% of the left atria. So if it happens, then it is successful valvulotomy. Then at least one of the commissure is visibly split, this is successful. No major complication, this is successful balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Then this is you see this figure, tracing of pulmonary capillary wedge pressure and left ventricular pressure in patient with mitral stenosis before and after valvuloplasty. Before valvuloplasty, after valvuloplasty. The pre-procedural peak transmittal gradient was 24 millimeter and anti-stolic gradient was 14 millimeter of the mercury. But post-procedural peak gradient was only 4 millimeter of the mercury and post-procedural and diastolic gradient was only 1 millimeter of the mercury. You can see the gross difference. Now, if balloon mitral valvuloplasty in difficult scenario, what to do? If balloon mitral valvuloplasty in difficult scenario, what to do? Number one, balloon mitral valve in presence of left atrial or left atrial appendages clot. If the presence of the clot in left atria or left atrial appendages, then what to do? For a long time, left atrial thrombus in patient with mitral stenosis has been considered as a contraindication for balloon mitral valvuloplasty. In selected patients with type 1A, 1B and second A LH thrombus, balloon mitral valvuloplasty can be performed safely by the modified over-the-wire technique. Can be done safely by the modified over-the-wire technique. This technique involves direct positioning of a coiled iron wire into the left ventricle through the Mullin sheath, followed by introduction of an ionocatheter over the wire technique. Now, before we go for the modified over the wire technique, we are supposed to know the classification of left atrial and left atrial appendages clot. Type 1A, clot confined to appendages. This is appendage, clot confined to appendages. Type 1B, clot protruding into LA cavity. You see, this is protruding into LA cavity. Type 2A, clot limited to a plane above the plane of fossa ovalis. Clot limited to a plane above the plane of fossa ovalis. Second B, clot extending below the plane of fossa ovalis. This is extending below the plane of fossa ovalis. Then type third, layered clot over the interstitial septum. This is layered clot. Layered clot over the interstitial septum. Type 4, mobile clot. Mobile clot attached to left atrial pre-wall or roof or interstitial septum. Lastly, ball wall thrombus. Ball wall thrombus. Here, this is the clot. During systole, it enters the LV, and during diastole, it goes back to atria. Then second scenario where we find difficulty in entering the balloon and in entering the mitral wall is balloon mitral valvuloplasty in giant left atrium or interatrial septum aneurysm. So if there is giant left atria or aneurysm of interatrial septum, then we find difficulty. So in patient with giant LA and septal aneurysm, technical difficulties may be encountered in performing the transseptal puncture and crossing the mitral valve orifice. In such situations, what to do? Number one, increasing the curvature of the broken Barron needle or probing around the fossa ovalis may assist in safe septal puncture. Probing around the fossa ovalis may assist in safe septal puncture. When difficulty is encountered in crossing the mitral valve, then either changing the shape of the stirrup, reverse loop entry, modified over the wire technique, balloon flotation catheter assisted entry or deliberate low septal puncture methods may be opted to enter LV. Now what are the problems in crossing mitral valve? Number one, severe mitral stenosis means mitral valve area less than 1 centimeter square, because normally 4 to 6 centimeter square or meter square of body surface area. Then giant LA, giant left atria is a problem in crossing MV. Then large atrial septal defect is problem in crossing mitral valve. Then third scenario, balloon mitral valvulotomy in severe subvalvular diseases like grade 4 of Wilkins echocardiographic score. Severe subvalvular stenosis may cause difficulty in negotiating the iron balloon into LV. Severe subvalvular stenosis may cause difficulty in negotiating the iron balloon into LV. In such situations, pre-dilating and releasing submitral apparatus stenosis using peripheral angioplasty balloon means short length of balloons with 6 to 8 millimeters in diameter may facilitate subsequent entry of 12F ionoballoon catheter. And this can be achieved either through antegrade approach or retrograde approach. Utmost care should be taken not to cause caudal or papillary muscle rupture. So now we have reached to the modified over the wire technique. The modified over the wire technique, it is described by Manjunath of the CS side. Dr. Manjunath of CS side. Here you can say the position of the left atrial appendage. Then you can see the Mullin sheath near the mitral wall. Then you can see the coiled guide wire directly introduced into left ventricle. Then you can see the septal dilatation over the coiled guide wire. The septal dilatation over the coiled guide wire. Then you can see Acura balloon over the coiled guide wire crossing the mitral wall. The Acura balloon over the coiled guide wire crossing the mitral wall. And lastly, this is done what? Acura balloon inflation. The Acura balloon inflation. Now in the fourth scenario, the balloon mitral valvuloplasty in inferior vena cava interruption. Balloon mitral valvuloplasty in inferior vena cava interruption or inferior vena cava anomalies or iliofemoral anomaly. Then we have to do the valvuloplasty through internal jugular vein approach. Congenital or acquired anomalies of inferior vena cava or iliofemoral veins may preclude transfemoral approach. In such situations, transjugular approach to transeptal balloon mitral valvuloplasty is useful. Alternatively, levophage injection of pulmonary arteriogram may be utilized to delineate the interatrial septum. Deliberate high atrial puncture facilitates balloon crossing into the left ventricle in jugular approach. However, the transjugular approach is technically challenging. Transjugular approach is technically challenging and may be considered as an alternative approach to femoral approach only when the anatomical variations warrant so. Balloon mitral valvulotomy in juvenile mitral stenosis in comparison with adults, children, adolescents with rheumatic mitral stenosis is more often have what? In comparison with children and adolescents with rheumatic mitral stenosis more often have what? Severe pulmonary hypertension, very high transmittal gradient, atrial fibrillation and left atrial dilation. This is in the juvenile mitral stenosis. In the juvenile mitral stenosis. So, in above situations, what to do? Use a balloon diameter smaller than the typically recommended size. Second, stepwise increasing balloon diameter. Third, meticulous pressure gradient measurement. Fourth and the last, watching for mitral regurgitation after each dilatation is important. Mitral valve area interpreted with respect to body surface area in children. Mitral valve area interpreted with respect to body surface area in children. Balloon mitral valvuloplasty is effective, safe and provides better immediate results as compared to adults here in children, particularly with regard to acute complications, for example, freedom from restenosis and from clinical events at 10 years. and there was no different from adult population. The clinical events at 10 years were no different from adult population. Indexed mitral valve area was larger than the adults. Now I will show you the balloon mitral valvulotomy in pregnancy. In pregnancy, very important. Patient with moderate to severe mitral stenosis in pregnant women due to increased heart rate, number one. Then increase in intravascular volume. In pregnancy occurs what? Increased heart rate and increase in intravascular volume. So there will be moderate to severe mitral stenosis, and it worsens. The mitral stenosis worsens due to increased heart rate and increase in intravascular volume. So in 25% of patients, symptoms occur by 20th week. Means this worsened symptoms, the symptoms which are worsened in mitral stenosis in pregnancy, in 25% patient occurs by 20th week and aggravate at the time of labor and delivery. Maternal mortality is higher, 6 to 6.8% without intervention. So for those in New York Heart Association classes 3rd and 4th, so what to do? At end of second trimester or beginning of the third trimester is the optimal timing of balloon mitral valvuloplasty, during which radiation risk to the fetus is negligible. The radiation risk of fetus is negligible at the end of second trimester or beginning of third trimester. So operator should perform with balloon mitral valvuloplasty with abdominal and pelvic shielding and with minimum radiation exposure. It should be avoided during first trimester. Then the complications of balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Adverse complications relevant occur during the procedure. For example, during intra-atrial septal puncture, number 1. Number 2, manipulation of ionoballoon catheter in the left atrium. Number 3, commissurotomy of the mitral valve by ionoballoon catheter. Major complications as regards to broken burrow puncture results from penetration of broken burrow needle into the adjacent structure. What are those? Number 1, ascending aorta. Number 2, post-atrial pericardial space. Number 3, and so that the procedural mortality ranges from 0 to 3% in most series. So here I am showing you the complications during balloon mitral valvuloplasty. Number 1, pericardial effusion or tamponade. It occurs in 0.5 to 12% cases. How to manage? Number 1, pericardiocentesis. Number 2, reversal of heparin done. How? With protamine, 1 to 1.5 mg per 100 unit of heparin should be used, not to exceed 50 mg of protamine. Then autotransfusion done. Then balloon mitral valvuloplasty through second puncture to reduce LA pressure done. Then surgical closure of perforation when conservative strategy fails. Then you have to do surgical closure also. The second complication, acute severe MR requiring surgery in 0.9 to 2% of the cases. So early mitral valve replacement, preferably within 24 hours, is recommended for optimal outcome. Third complication, acute embolism or stroke. It occurs in 0.5 to 5% patients. Here, conservative management done. Intra-atrial lysis done by systemic thrombolysis. If the clots are of less than 7 days duration. And remember, local infusion more efficient than systemic. Local infusion of thrombolytics are more efficient than systemic. Then lastly, the complication is residual atrial septal defect. So, at 48 hours, you find in 60 to 70% residual atrial septal defect, and at 6 months, in 8 to 10% cases, you find residual atrial septal defect. So, in these cases, we have to do conservative treatment in almost all cases. Here is the figure, transthoracic echocardiographic showing post balloon mitral valvoplasty, anterior mitral leaflet tear and severe mitral regurgitation. The anterior mitral leaflet has been torn and this is the severe mitral regurgitation. Now, what are the immediate results of balloon mitral valvoplasty, which are as follows. Immediate results of balloon mitral valvoplasty. Mitral valve area approximately doubles in most successful cases after percutaneous balloon mitral valvoplasty, irrespective of the echo scoring system used. Older age, smaller valve area, previous commissurotomy or baseline mitral regurgitation should be considered as potential predictors of poor immediate outcome. Now, long-term results are as follows. After a successful procedure, the incidence of restenosis ranges from 2 to 40% in different studies, ranging from 3 to 10 years. The freedom from restenosis rates were 85% at 10 years, 44% at 15 years, and significantly higher, that is 92% at 5 years, 85% at 10 years, and 65% at 15 years seen. For patients with optimal morphology, these things are seen. Depending on the anatomy, restenosis can be treated either with repeat percutaneous balloon mitral valvoplasty or with surgical mitral valve replacement. So, in the last but not the least, I go for conclusion. The conclusion, rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart diseases are still continue to be an important public health problem in developing world. Although the disease burden appears to have declined in parts of India that have experienced an improvement human development indexes, but still there are many parts left where the disease burden may be still high. There is paucity of epidemiological data from poorly served rural populations, urban slums and tribal pockets where the disease prevalence is expected to be high. It is also important to recognize that the epidemiology of rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease in India may be rapidly changing in many parts of the country. A substantial decline in disease burden is likely in those parts of India that are experiencing substantial improvement in various human development indexes. Penicillin prophylaxis, particularly secondary prophylaxis has remained the mainstay for prevention of rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart disease, particularly in high prevalence regions. An effective vaccine against group A streptococcus has been the potential of reducing rheumatic fever and rheumatic heart diseases burden. small but substantial occurrence of rheumatic mitral stenosis still exists despite the decreasing incidence of rheumatic fever and the prevalence of rheumatic heart diseases as sequelae in most Asian countries. Percutaneous mitral commissurotomy since its introduction has demonstrated good immediate and mid-term result and has replaced surgical mitral commissurotomy as the preferred treatment of rheumatic mitral stenosis in appropriate candidates. The need for adequate understanding of indications, balloon mitral valvuloplasty procedure, complications and assessment of results cannot be overemphasized, cannot be overstressed. Thank you very much for your kind attention on today's CME, the international CME on percutaneous balloon mitral valvuloplasty. It was very much simplified by me, and I am sure you have understood every point at every step. And now in the next CME, I am going to take another international cardiology, that is percutaneous transcatheter aortic valve implantation, and soon I will produce this in 1 or 2 weeks. Thank you very much for your kind attention.